Hi, everybody. I will not talk about any of the pieces of work you see on screen today. I'm going to talk about something that is just starting. It's often a temptation to talk about things that are perfect and out in the world. And whereas now that we're trying to grapple with a problem, I'd like to share that with you. And I'm going to grab a lot of you during the breaks to help us crack this problem. The problem, like most conversations, started in a pub in London with this man, who is the chief executive of a wonderful charity called Malaria No More in the United Kingdom. And over a course of a few too many pints, I learned a bunch of things. I learned, first of all, that the equivalent of the population of a city like Seattle or Baltimore or Washington, D.C. or Denver or Nashville dies every year from malaria in Africa. And if that's not tragic enough, the vast majority of those, 86% of those, are children under the age of 5. Now, what's really amazing about this to me is that these stats are a success story. In the past 10 years, deaths from malaria have dropped by 42%. We've moved from a kid dying every 30 seconds to a kid dying every minute. But I'm not being flippant about that being a success story. We have an opportunity in our lifetime to eradicate deaths from malaria. It's been done before. It's been done in North America. It's been done in Europe. But we are at that critical stage that they will tell you they call the last mile. And the last mile is the point where you feel like you're about to eradicate. You lose kind of the focus on it, and the parasite returns with a vengeance, and the curve moves once again in the other direction. And while you need to maintain the funding and the programs and the policy, this is the point in the struggle where you have to now engage the end users. You have to engage people and really make this something that they become a part of eradicating. And when I hear that, my brain just goes, well, that's a creative challenge. How do you get individuals to engage with something that is negative and that they don't want to talk about? How do you make this something that they get involved in? And I have a real understanding of that challenge because I grew up in rural West Africa. I'm the cute guy to the left of the teacher. Time hasn't been good to me. And every year, twice a year at least, I got malaria. I come from a middle-class educated family, so I was always going to get the fluids. I was always going to get the meds. So I was never at the risk of death, but it often felt like it. I mean, malaria, I don't know if anybody, has anybody here had malaria? So we have somebody there. Grab him if you're next to him. Malaria makes the flu feel like a paper cut. It's completely debilitating. And growing up in a village of really just subsistence farmers, I have so many memories of little boxes being lowered into the wet earth and trying to make sense of how the person lying dead in that was playing football with us just a week ago. Those are not things people want to engage with in communities. And so when I think about some of the things that we've been able to do at Wolf Orleans in my time, whether it's RED, which really takes this thing about AIDS and turns it into something actually that we can tell a story about, that we can be positive about, that we can create some energy around this and take that horrible thing but actually put a really positive spin that engages many people and certainly brings the energy and power of lots of organizations together to make something happen. I kind of see, okay, there is a way you can begin to do something around this. Or if I think about Little Sun, which is we're development partners with the artist Oliver Eliasson on this, which literally puts the electricity, the power of light, that means that a kid can study at night and that families can stay up a bit later and discuss their day, which has an amazing social impact in their lives. And actually that the way you do that is by empowering local communities to be at the heart of how they solve that problem, which is a huge one. 1.6 billion people around the world don't have access to safe or reliable electricity. And the options, the hacks they put together can be incredibly dangerous to them and expensive over a period of time. But what I love about Little Sun, which is this thing that has such utility at the point of need, is also an object of desire in the Western world. So you kind of get this balance between both sides. My 10-year-old daughter, who lives an affluent enough life in central London, doesn't go anywhere without her Little Sun. So those two things gave me a hint that actually that this malaria thing that I'd always thought about as a problem you don't ever want to talk about because it's just darkness. And you see the success of the past 10 years. You think to yourself, we can do something about this. We can create something really positive that makes a big difference. And with the help of the guys from Malaria No More in the past 6 weeks, we've started exploring a solution which I'd like to share with you today. We simplify our task as to pit creativity against malaria. And we call the idea Code M. And Code M, the idea behind Code M is a series of products that have a utility at the point of need. They help people give people the power in their own hands to beat malaria, but are also objects of desire out in the Western world. And so they contribute towards solving the problem, but actually just because they are such attractive and wonderful things, they create an awareness of the problem, and that will keep the pressure up on the funding community, on the governments, on the NGOs to keep working on this problem until we've completely eradicated it. And we're designing a system around 3 key groups. The first group we'll call creatives. These are the people that we're asking to help us really think differently about that point of need and how we solve the problem. We're talking to retailers to say, certainly in the West, but actually one of the retailers who's already on board is a company called Jumia.ng, which is the largest e-commerce site in Africa's largest economy in Nigeria. So they're on board because we need to be able to get these things out to market. And then the final group is experts, because we need people who can actually help us really identify and define the problem. Malaria No More have been fantastic at that for us, but also to validate that the things we're creating actually will contribute to solve that problem. So those are the 3 groups we've put together, and that creates a system for us. And in the past 6 weeks, we've done a few things to test this, which I'd love to share with you today. 2 weeks ago, we brought a bunch of what we will call the group creatives, and so it was people from the Science Museum in London, people from the Royal College of Art, an innovation consultancy based out in Kenya called Balloon Kenya, and a few other people. And I've just got about a minute and a bit of video that just captures that day. And the soundtrack you're hearing over this, where we set them a brief, and I'll tell you what the brief is in a second, where we set them a brief came also out of that day. But what we said to them is, everything you create has to fit 4 boxes. First of all, you have to create something that solves the problem at the point of need, but could also be an attractive thing that somebody will want to buy out in the West. We said it has to be something I choose to use, not something I have to use. So make it playful, make it desirable, so I actually choose it. It has to fit into the malaria economy. So these have to be affordable things that anybody can buy. And because, again, 86% of the people who die from malaria are children, if we can educate the current under 5s around malaria, we will eradicate this disease in our lifetime. And then the guys at Malaria No More helped us even make that a very specific brief for these people that they spent a day looking at, which is create a product for a child to protect them from being bitten by mosquitoes at night. So here's about a minute of what the guys did together for a day. Some very specific ideas came out of that. I won't spend much time talking about them. There was the music that you just heard. There were some lyrics to that, but Sagarita kept saying smack and crack, and you can't put that on something that targets 5-year-olds. We had lots of really practical ideas. So there's this series, this family of objects, including the evil Miss Monique, but also something that soaks up the liquid around the house, which is where mosquitoes breed, a little personalized spray can, something that plays with your nets, and the doctor, which is where you can keep your treatment. So things, again, that engage children around stuff. Lots of ideas, from nets that pull up, to nets that pop up, to nets that become educational so that the kid really enjoys using them, to nets that you would use outdoors in the hot months where you really want to sleep on the roofs, but you can't have your bed and your bed net over there. So lots of really practical ideas that gave us a sense that this is doable. Two other things to talk about, which is the other two groups, and here it's really work in progress. As I said, the e-commerce site Jumia are on board. What we're trying to make sure that we create is a system that retailers, kind of learning from what we did on Red, a system that retailers can adopt. It starts with the M, but that M turns into, of course, a net, because that's become almost the icon of malaria eradication. But you can personalize it. You can bring the energy and the different ideas that are around that. And when you have a system like that, then you get to this point where people can begin to create lots of variations that become much more ownable for each individual retailer to customize that and create their own patterns. And then the final people to talk about is the experts. And with experts, we've got the learning platform Kahoot on board, and what they are going to do is they're going to host a place where experts can put 4 kinds of information that creative people are going to need to design around this. The basic science around malaria, because you need to understand some basics before you get involved in this. The issues with manufacturing and distributing, particularly lots of stuff we've learned from what people with nets have done. The research on behavior, and this is where there's a big gap. How do people behave? We know the technical solutions, but how can we create things that work in the malaria economy? And what are some of the cultural platforms that NGOs sometimes miss that we can really begin to adopt to get these products into the hands of the people who we need to make this change with? So that's kind of it. The minute I finish this talk, I'm going to click a magic button somewhere, and a website is going to go live. It's going to be www.code-m.net. Net, get it? And we're really asking people to sign up and tell us how they can help. And it is, again, around those 3 areas: creatives, retailers, and experts. And that's where I have an ask for you today. We've got a date, and just like the little make day we had in the office 2 weeks ago, we're really envisioning hundreds of these happening around the world. And between now and then, we're going to create kits that allow creative people anywhere to download a bunch of challenges and spend a day helping us solve this problem. So again, I'm inviting you all to please become partners of this. As we go through this, we're already beginning to collect partners. Here are some of the creative partners that are on board, but we have a whole wish list of partners we want to get on board. There are retail partners on board already, but we have a whole list of retail partners we want to get on board. We've got these experts, a whole bunch of other experts that we want to get on board. So I'm really asking the collective, anybody who thinks that this is a problem that they will want to get involved in, to help us kind of find these partners. So that's Code M, and I just want to kind of maybe summarize with a slightly different point. It's really easy to think about this kind of work when the problem is so articulate. And when you, coming from Africa, our problems in Africa are very articulate, where you're thinking about transportation or electricity or just the normal everyday life that people live. But we're beginning to really understand in our work that when we attack the problems that matter to people, when we get people together, that's actually more important than actually thinking about what the brand we're trying to create is. And whether that problem is poverty, in a more social sense, or an organization that's facing slow growth, or an organization who's confusing its marketplace, we find that when you get many people together across the problems that matter, you create a great brand by default, but actually being really focused on the problems that matter to us all is so much more important. Thank you very much.